So here in section 2.1, we're talking about finding slope and the equation of a line. Now we've done this before in algebra, even pre-algebra we did this, so this should be a review. When we find the slope, we're going to pick any 2 points on the line. There's several ways to think about slope. Remember, we typically think about slope as the letter M, which could be rise over run. Another way to think about it is the change in y over the change in x. Now what we typically sometimes see is it written as delta y over delta x. This symbol is a Greek letter called delta. It looks like a triangle, and that means change. So when you read this, you would say change in y over change in x. All right. Again, that just means how much I'm moving up in the y direction for every amount I move over in the x direction. Right. So rise over run is typically kind of what you probably heard before. So if I'm going to find the slope, I can pick any 2 points on this line. That's the nice thing about it, right? I can choose, let's say this point is on the line. This is at -2, 4. And I could also choose a point over here, which is at 2, -2. So if I look at my rise, let's say I start here at this point on the left, I can go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Notice how I'm counting each jump as a movement. So I'm going down 6 places, so my rise is -6. And then I can look at the run, how much I travel to the right. And this is 1, 2, 3, 4. I'll do that in a different color besides yellow. 1, 2, 3, 4. And because I'm traveling to the right, that's a +4. So -6 over 4 would reduce to be -3/2. So -3/2 would be my slope. Now I can go ahead and I can try it a different way. I can pick 2 other points, doesn't even matter. We'll get rid of the red dots. Let's go ahead and we're gonna pick, how about the point right here? And then we'll go ahead and pick this point right here, right? 2 separate points. And maybe this time, maybe I start at this point here. And so I'm gonna go up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So I'm going up 6, that's a +6. And then I'm talking about going to the left. So when I make my motion to the left, 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm actually traveling left, which is negative. So we still get -3/2 once we reduce this. All right, so either way, you should get the same answer once you reduce. Again, I could even try this one more time just to really kind of drive it home. I could pick a point here, 0, 1, and a point here, and my slope would be -3, right down 1, 2, 3, and then 2 to the right, 1, 2. So we still get that -3 over 2 for my slope. One thing to remember about slope is that -3 over 2 is the same thing as -3 over 2, which is the same thing as 3 over -2. It doesn't matter where you put that negative symbol, as long as you don't have a negative in both the top and the bottom, all right, of your fraction. So any of those are going to work out just fine. They all mean the same thing. If you're asked to find the slope between 2 points, you're going to calculate rise over run, which is also known as change in y over change in x. And we typically use what's called, again, this is called the slope formula here, right? The slope formula is just the change in y values. So you're going to subtract the y values, and then you're going to subtract the x values. That's going to tell you kind of like the height and then the length, right? If I'm finding the slope between these 2 points, might be helpful to label these. So here's the first point, so x1, y1, and here's the second point, x2, y2. I'll fix that first one up. There we go. And so if I use my slope formula, y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, we're just going to go ahead and plug these numbers in. So that'd be -17 minus, then y1 we know is 4, and then I've got x2, which is -6, minus x1, which is -3. So be very careful of your double negatives here. You're always subtracting whatever that first value is. So we subtract, we get -21 over, this is really plus, so we get -3. So the slope here would be 7. Now just to show you it doesn't matter what I call these points, right? I could erase this and let's call them something different, right? Let's call this the second point and this the first point. All right, so now if I do my slope formula and I do y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1, well, this time y2 is 4, and I'm subtracting a -17. And this time x2 is negative 3, and I'm subtracting a negative 6. So when we go ahead and simplify, this is going to be really 4 plus 17, which is 21, and negative 3 plus 6, which is really 3, and 21 over 3 is still 7. So you still get the same answer. Again, that kind of goes back to when we did the graph, right? And we saw that the, I don't know where the graph went, disappeared. We saw that the graph, you could go from either direction, and you still get the same answer, so that's kind of reflected right here, all right? So that's how you find the slope between